My name's Christopher Bray. I'm currently a librarian with the county library. I'm at the Smith branch, moving over to Kearns when they open. And I was asked to give a presentation about beekeeping and honeybees. It's just kind of a hobby of mine that I've been doing for a little while. So I have a slide presentation and some props. So let's get started. So I've been beekeeping for about 3 years now. I started just because it seemed like it would be a fun hobby. I've always been fascinated with bees. Was reading a lot about them before I decided to try my hand at it, and it's been a pretty good experience so far. And I find that a lot of people are really interested in honeybees and beekeeping, especially in Utah. It's really popular. We are the beehive state. I gave one other presentation at another senior center before, and it was a really great response. All the seniors were really enthusiastic and had a lot of questions, and it was really great to see so much interest. So I'll start the slides if we want to move to our next slide. So my presentation is mostly about beekeeping and honeybees with some fun facts and a little bit of history. And so it's not so much about a guide for you to take it on yourself if you wanted to, although I could certainly help anybody out who might want to do that. It's not as hard as it seems. And there's a lot of things you can do for bees even if you're not keeping a hive yourself. So these are medieval beekeepers here. Beekeeping has been around for at least 10,000 years, and possibly longer as evidenced in ancient depictions. These beekeepers are from the Dark Ages, and their suits are still creeping people out. Bees, however, have been around for around 130 million years, and they have required almost no evolution because they are so well adapted to their environment. So they're pretty much the same now as they were 130 million years ago. So they are a very efficient creature. And let's move on to the next slide. I have a bunch of really interesting honeybee facts for you because bees are actually really interesting. I mean, I learn things about them all the time that just shock me. They're really smart, and they're funny, and they have personalities, and So first fact, beeswax that we all know is actually a fat that is secreted from the body of a honeybee. They don't actually make the wax like they do the honey. It just kind of comes out of their body through glands, and then those get removed and turned into the wax, which you recognize holds the honey and the brood. Beeswax is actually somewhat valuable. A lot of beekeepers will sell their fresh beeswax because it's used in so many products. And honey, that delicious treat we all love, is actually bee vomit. Bees have an amazing process of creating honey inside their bodies through multiple stomachs. Bees are actually the only insect in the world that create food for human beings. And mead, if you guys have ever heard of mead, it's like an ancient drink. It's a sort of beer made from honey, and it's the oldest fermented beverage in the world. It's the first alcoholic beverage that we know of, and that comes from honey. Honeybee life inside the hive is almost exclusively female. Every time you see a honeybee hovering around some flowers, it's a female bee. Male honeybees are called drones, and they live only to mate. In fact, male honeybees don't even have stingers. They're really docile little creatures. I often will kind of hold one in my hand, and you don't have to worry about them stinging you. They're really cool. And the females actually kick out the drones when they're no longer needed for mating with the queen. So you only see drones flying around the entrance of a hive for certain times of the year, and the rest of the year they're just not there. And some more facts on the next slide. Honeybees are known to drink too much alcohol from time to time. They seem to be attracted to fermented liquids and will drink enough to become visibly intoxicated. If an intoxicated honeybee attempts to re-enter the hive, the bees guarding the entrance will kindly ask her to return when she has sobered up. This may seem like just a fun story, but it's actually true. The queen bee spends the majority of her life inside the hive laying eggs. And as a result of this, she usually isn't in the greatest shape. So when the hive has to relocate, which is also known as swarming, bees will move their hive for various reasons. It's really kind of cute, but the other bees will start to pester the queen about 2 weeks before they leave. They'll just, nip at her and push her around to get her moving, and then after about 2 weeks of being harassed by the bees, she's ready to go and will be able to fly with her hive to relocate. And what's also kind of cute is if you watch videos of this happening, she's obviously agitated by what's going on. And I have some more facts on the next slide. And even more interesting honeybee facts. Honeybees have been proven to be democratic. This doesn't mean that they vote Democrat. It means that they make decisions democratically as a group, where each bee has a say. For example, when relocating or swarming, a group of bees will scout out possible new locations and essentially vote on which one to choose. This is a pretty recent scientific discovery, but it's really cool that they kind of work together as a team and they all have their own voice. Bees also communicate with dance. In certain situations, you can watch bees performing various dances where each dance is communicating a different piece of information. One of the best parts of being a beekeeper is that moment when you are standing in the middle of a huge swarm of bees and you can feel the air moving around you from their rapidly moving wings, which creates the buzz sound that we're all familiar with. It feels almost like electricity. It's a really neat experience. When you have enough bees around you, thousands of bees, you can actually kind of feel the movement in the air. I think I have some more on the next slide, some more facts. So a little bit of bad news. Honeybees are actually disappearing right now. The world population of honeybees is in decline. This is due to a phenomenon called colony collapse disorder, which is where a large portion of the worker bee population within a hive disappears. The queen and the remaining bees cannot survive without them. So the bees that go out of the hive to collect pollen for the creation of the honey, they disappear. They don't come back to the hive, and it's because something is happening to them while they're away from the hive. And sometimes they actually do they can bring chemicals or parasites back to the hive, which causes the rest of the hive to die off. It's theorized that bees are disappearing, at least in part, because of new chemicals that have been introduced into their ecosystems by human beings, particularly from pesticides. Bees may be highly sensitive to these chemicals, which end up in their water sources, on the plants they visit, and more. But there is hope. And on our next slide, there is a little bit of good news. It's been recently shown that wild honeybee populations are still thriving on a level that domesticated honeybees are not. This is a sign that the decline in honeybee population may be more related to domesticated bees than bees in general. So something about domestication and bees living closer to human beings in cities may be what's affecting them. It's been proposed that the domestic process of beekeeping be adjusted to allow honeybees to live as they always have, dependent on nature and themselves and not on human beings. This doesn't mean we have to give up on beekeeping, but rather we should be mindful of introducing unnatural elements into our beekeeping practices and giving bees more credit for being able to take care of themselves. They have been for millions of years. And you can help by treating your garden, however big or small, with natural organic treatments. You can protect the honeybees. You can also create bee-friendly gardens that attract more bees by growing flowers and other plants that bees are attracted to. You can also leave out a small dish of water for your bee friends. It's funny, but they like dirty water. They don't. If you leave out a nice, clean, pristine-looking bowl of water, they don't want it. They want it to have some mud in it, and some sticks, and some rocks. That's what they're attracted to. So when I make water places for the bees, I try to make them look almost like a natural little pond. And that's what attracts them. So our next slide. I wanted to talk a little bit about honey because I think these facts can give you a really strong appreciation for honey. one honeybee produces about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in her lifetime. This means that every time you consume even just 1 teaspoon of honey, you are consuming the life's work of 12 honeybees. Also, a recent medical study showed that honey is better at treating a lot of cold symptoms than over-the-counter medications, and honey doesn't really expire. You can leave it out and use it whenever, so it's great in that way. It's good for food storage and things like that. Also, the creation of 1 pound of honey takes about 90,000 miles worth of honeybee flight, and that's enough to travel around the globe 3 times. And honeybees make a lot of honey. In fact, they make a lot more than they need to survive. And this is part of why beekeeping has been beneficial to both bees and humans. And this is because the humans can take care of their hive, and in exchange they harvest the honey that the bees don't need. When you start beekeeping, you don't harvest any honey for the first year. That's to give the bees enough food to get through the winter, but after that first year, there's always a lot of excess honey in the hive. We'll move on to the next slide. So, as I've been beekeeping, I've noticed that bees definitely have their own personalities. No 2 hives are really the same, and no 2 bees are really the same. And these are some kind of personality types that I've noticed. So yeah, bees, like human beings, have distinct personalities, and here are a few. The grumpy Gus. Some bees just seem like they're always in a bad mood. They'll get in your face and scream at you to go away, even when you aren't even close to the hive, like they just want to harass you. The easy peasy lemon squeezy. This bee totally doesn't care that you're there because she's not worried about you. She knows that you're not going to attack the bees. She knows that you're taking care of the hive. She's chill. The lush. This is the bee that keeps hitting up the fermented stuff it found while looking for found by looking for new flowers the other day. The other ladies at home are getting tired of her behavior, trust me. The party girl. This is the bee that doesn't seem to do anything but dance. Sometimes I see bees and that's all they do. Bees are flying around and some are just chilling on the hive, just dancing the whole time. And the evil genius. This is the bee that somehow miraculously finds a way into your bee suit and stings you on the neck so that your neck swells up to the size of a goiter. And this obviously happened to me. Like, I get stung all the time, and it doesn't even bother me anymore. I'm just not even scared of it. But certain spots of your body are sensitive, and I got stung right under my chin here, and my neck just got really swollen, and I had to like stay in my room for a few days. Yeah. So next slide. Here's some pictures. So this is me. So when you start beekeeping, you have to get your bees, obviously, and you buy a box of bees. There's a couple of different types of boxes. One of them is called a nuke, and that one is a bigger box, and it has the honeycomb and bees that have already started colonizing and already started producing their brood, so that your hive can kind of has a head start on getting started. This is a standard box that has about 10,000 bees and a queen, and the queen is in a little box by herself, floating around inside that box of bees. And the bees go anywhere the queen does. They communicate chemically, so they always know where the queen is, and that's where they're going to be no matter what. So the way you set up a hive is you take out the queen first in that little box, and you put that box inside your hive, and then you basically just open up that box, and all those bees will go right into that hive because that's where the queen is. And in order to keep them from flying away, which happens sometimes, beekeepers have developed some pretty cool methods of trying to avoid that. And one thing they do is, the little box that the queen is in, there's a hole, and you plug the hole with a marshmallow, and you put the box in with the rest of the bees, and it takes about 2 days, but the queen will start eating the marshmallow on one side, and the other bees will start eating the marshmallow on the other side. And after about 2 days, the marshmallow is gone and the queen comes out, and by then the hive is pretty established because they've already been there for a couple of days and they've already gotten started building everything that they need. So there's different kinds of hives. This hive you see on my side here is a top-loading hive. The bees build the comb directly down from the slabs of wood. So if you were to pick up a piece of wood, the comb would just kind of be hanging on there. And then this hive, and that's actually a picture of me holding a slab there from it's called a Langstroth hive or a standard hive, where it already has a flat wax layer for the bees to build the wax on. And when you harvest honey, you basically take out a tray. You use a special brush to brush off the bees, and then you scrape off the honey with a scraper. And I think I have one more slide of pictures. So this is my wife scraping the honey off of one of the slats, and that's how we harvest it. When you scrape it off, it's all mixed in with the wax, so you can boil it to separate the wax from the honey. And then this is our hive, one of our hives over here during harvesting, where we've taken out all the slats to harvest the honey. Put the slats back in, and then the bees just return back home. And I have a couple of props I can show you. So this is a smoker, which I actually don't use very often. I think when you're first around bees, you might be a little bit nervous. And you might want to use a smoker. Basically, it just produces a white smoke that subdues the bees. Because bees communicate chemically, it's hard for them to communicate through the smoke. So they basically kind of chill out when they're around smoke and are a lot more docile. I know that some of the other beekeepers I know use a smoker for their first year or two, and then once they're not really nervous anymore, they don't need to use it. This is a standard beekeeping veil. A lot of beekeepers use a full suit, so you'll have a full body suit, and this will go over your head and zip up down at the base of your chest, so you don't have to worry about the bees getting in. But like I said, there's always that evil genius bee out there that will find a way into your suit, so you gotta kind of be prepared for that. Sometimes I see videos of beekeepers who don't wear a suit at all, and I'm certainly not that brave. I'm not quite sure how they do that. I think they might have some special connection with the bees. But I've definitely lessened over the years. I can use just a veil and have a long sleeve shirt on and some gloves, and I'm pretty good. I don't really use the full body suit anymore. And then, so because my wife and I, we have just a few hives, we don't harvest a ton of honey. We usually make just enough to make a bunch of little jars like this that we give out for Christmas and things like this. And yeah, and that's basically it. I do, if you go to the next slide, I would mention a couple of library resources that might help you if you're interested. If you are interested in learning more about honeybees and beekeeping, we have a lot of great materials at the county library. These are some new books that I really enjoy. The Lives of Bees. This talks a lot about the recent discovery of the fact that bees in the wild are thriving while domesticated bees are not. And Thomas Seeley proposes kind of a new way of beekeeping to try to address that problem. Honeybee Democracy is the book that explains the democratic process of bee life and how they make decisions, and it's a really great book. And in addition to these, we have a lot of beekeeping manuals, books on how to start a bee-friendly garden and things like that. And then I'll just mention a few resources on the next slide if you're interested. I know it's a tough time right now with COVID and everything is closed down. A lot of people are utilizing some digital or virtual resources from home, and the library has really stepped up their game in that area and tried to create more opportunities for people to access materials and programs from home. So we do have ebooks and audiobooks that you can check out on a device or a computer without having to come to the library. Those apps are called Overdrive, Libby, RB Digital. We do have Insight Express and curbside pickup, and we're reopening with metered access on the 21st. And I just thought I'd mention a few last things for anybody who's interested. We have some great virtual programming. We have a new database called CreateBug that has a lot of great free crafting programs and directions and classes. We have library at your door, so we can deliver books to you if you can't make it to the library. And We also have other services such as Ask a Librarian, Book a Librarian, a lot of online learning opportunities. And if you happen to find a bee book that we don't have, you can just ask the library to purchase that book, and they will purchase that book for their collection and let you know when it's available for you to check out. And that's all I have. I thank you for allowing me to talk about honeybees with you, and I appreciate it. Thank you.